Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by Robert L. May. Reckon 'twas a day before Christmas, and all through the hills the reindeer were playing and enjoying the spills of skating and coasting and climbing the willows and hopscotch and leapfrog protected by pillows. Reckon while every so often they'd stop to call names at one little reindeer not allowed in their games. Aha, look at Rudolph. Reckon his nose is a sight. Reckon it's as red as a beet and twice as big, twice as bright. I reckon while Rudolph just wept, what else could he do? He knew things they were saying were true. Reckon he cried. They made quite a bit of sport of him. Where most reindeers' noses are brownish and tiny, poor Rudolph's was red, very large, quite shiny. Reckon in daylight it dazzled. Reckon the picture showed that. At nighttime it glowed like the eyes of a cat. And putting dirt on it just made it look muddy. Oh boy, was he mad when they nicknamed him Rudy. Although he was lonesome, he was always good. Reckon the little feller always obeyed his parents. He's a good reindeer. Reckon that's why on this day Rudolph almost felt playful. Reckon he hoped that from Santa soon driving his sleigh full of presents and candy and dollies and toys for good little animals and good girls and boys. I reckon he'd get just as much, and this is what pleased him. As a happier, handsomer reindeer who teased him, as night and a fog hid the world like a hood. Reckon he went to bed hopeful. He knew he'd been good. While way up north on this foggy night, reckon old Santa Claus was packing his sleigh full of toys for his flight. This fog, he complained, will be hard to get through. Reckon he shook his head. He shook it and shook. His tummy shook too whenever he did it. Reckon without any stars or moon as a compass, this extra dark night is quite likely to swamp us. Reckon to keep from collisions, we'll have to fly slow. Keep our direction, we'll have to fly low. Reckon we'll steer by the street lamps and the houses tonight in order to finish before it gets light. Just think how the boys and girls' faith would be shaken if we didn't reach them before they awaken. Alright then. Come Dasher, come Dancer, come Prancer and Vixen, come Comet, come Cupid, come Donner and Blitzen. Be quick with your suppers, get hitched in a hurry. You too will find the fog a delay and a worry. And Santa was right, as he usually is. That fog was as thick as a soda's white fizz. Just not getting lost required all Santa skills, with street signs and numbers more difficult still. Reckon he tangled in treetops again and again. He barely missed hitting a tri-motored plane. Reckon he still made good speed with the twisting and turning, as long as the street lamps and the house lights were burning. At each house, first noting the people who lived there, he quickly selected the right presents to give there. By midnight, however, the last light had fled, and even big people had then gone to bed. Reckon it might wake them. A match was denied him. Oh my, how he wished for just one star to guide him. Through dark streets and houses old Santa fared poorly. He now picked the presents more slowly, less surely. Reckon he really was worried, for what could he do if him feller started waking before he was through? The air was still foggy. The night was dark and drear when Santa arrived at the home of the deer. On the ledge that he tripped on while seeking the chimney, gave Santa a spill and a painfully skinned knee. The room he came down in was blacker than ink. He went for a chair, and then he found it in a sink. So dark he had to move close to the bed and squint very hard on the sleeping deer's head before he could choose the right kind of toy, a doll for a girl or a train for a boy. Reckon all this took time and filled Santa with gloom, while slowly he groped toward the next reindeer's room. The door he'd just opened when, to his surprise, a dim but quite definite light met his eyes. The light wasn't burning, the glow came instead from something that lay at the head of the bed. And there lay, but wait now, what would you suppose? The glowing, you've guessed it, was Rudolph's nose. So I reckon this room was easy. Just one little light. Let Santa pick quickly the gifts that we write. How happy he was till he went out the door. The rest of the house was black as before. So I reckon that black that made it every step a dark mystery. And then came the greatest idea in all history. I reckon he went to Rudolph. He started to shake him. Of course, very gently, just in order to wake him up. Rudolph could scarcely believe his own eyes. You just imagine his joy and surprise. At seeing who stood there, so real and so near, while telling the tale we've already told here. Reckon poor old Santa's sad tale of distress and delay, and the fool in the darkness and losing his way. I reckon poor Santa's sad tale of distress and delay, and fog in the darkness and losing his way. Reckon that horrible fear that some children might waken before his complete Christmas trip had been taken. And you, he told Rudolph, may yet save the day. Reckon your wonderful forehead may yet pave the way. For wonderful triumph, it actually might. Old Santa, you notice, was extra polite. To Rudolph, regarding his wonderful forehead, to call it a big shiny nose would sound horrid. Reckon I need ye, said Santa, to help me tonight, to lead my dear rest of our flight. Reckon Rudolph broke out into such a big grin, it almost connected his ears to his chin. Reckon a note for his folks, he dashed off in a hurry. I've gone to help Santa, he wrote, don't you worry. Said Santa, my sleigh I'll bring down the lawn, you'd stick in the chimney, and in a flash he was gone. So I reckon Rudolph pranced out through the door, very gay, and he took proud place at the head of the sleigh. I reckon the rest of the night, well, you might well guess, old Santa's idea was a brilliant success. And reckon brilliant was almost no word for the way that Rudolph directed the deer in the sleigh. In spite of the fog, They flew quickly and low and made such use of the wonderful glow from Rudolph's forehead at each intersection that not even once did they lose their direction. I reckon while as the houses and the streets with a sign on them, they merely flew close so that Rudolph could shine on them. To tell who lived where and just what to give whom, they'd fly by each window and peek in the room. Reckon old Sandy knew always which children were good and minded their parents and ate as they should. So Sandy selected the gift that was right, while Rudolph's forehead gave enough light. It all went so fast, I reckon, that before it was day, the very last present was given away. The very last stocking was filled to the top, just as the sun was preparing to pop. Reckon the sun woke up Reindeer at Rudolph's hometown. Reckon they found a short message that he had written down, and gathered outside to wait for his return. They were excited and astonished to learn that Rudolph, the ugliest reindeer of all of them, Rudolph the red-nosed, bashful, and small, the funny-faced feller that they'd always called names, practically never allowed in their games, was now to be envied by all, far and near. Reckon for no greater honor can come to a deer than riding with Sandy and guiding his sleigh. The number one job on the number one day. I reckon the sleigh and the reindeer soon came into view, and Rudolph still led them as downward they flew. Oh boy, was he proud as they came into a landing, right where his handsome playmates were standing. Reckon these bad deer who used to do nothing but tease him would now have done anything only to please him. Reckon they felt even sorrier than they had been bad when Sandy said, "Rudolph, I never have had a deer quite so brave or so brilliant as you. Reckon as fighting back fog and guiding me through. Reckon by you, last night's journey was actually bossed. Without you, I'm certain we'd all been lost. Reckon I hope you'll continue to keep us from grief on future dark trips as Commander-in-Chief." Reckon Rudolph just blushed from his head to his toes until his whole fur was as red as his nose. Reckon crowd first applauded, then started to screech, "Hooray for Rudolph, and we want a speech." Reckon Rudolph was kindly bashful though, despite being a hero, and he tried. His sleep on the trip totaled 0. So reckon that's why his speech was just a brief and not bright. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Reckon that's why, whenever it's foggy and gray, it's Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer who guides Santa's sleigh. Be listening to this Christmas, but don't make a peep, 'cause that late at night, children should be asleep. I reckon the very first sound that you'll hear on the roof, provided that there's fog, will be Rudolph's small hoof. Reckon soon after that, if you're still as a mouse, you may hear a swish as he flies around the house. Reckon it gives enough light to give Sandy a view of you in your room. And when they're all through, reckon you may hear them call as they drive out of sight. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.